All right, let's pause the recording.
Is here.
Recording in progress. Here we go. Let's get this here. Now I'm just going to put it on participants so that if anybody joins in, I'm going to see, because I actually have to let right now, I have to let people in if they join. I got to figure out a better way. I have to have some security. So either I have to put a password or I have to make it that people are in the waiting room unless I let them in. All right. That's fine. Let's go to me. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think if I send the link in advance, it comes with the password. So I think I'm just going to do it that way next time, so I don't have to worry about letting people in. All right, so we're in Parshas Beshalach, and Parshas Beshalach is, it's probably the most epic parsha in the Torah. It's a splitting of the sea. Right? This is in the old Cecil B. DeMille movie, Ten Commandments, and in Prince of Egypt. Like, this is where they spent most of their budget. This is the high special effects. And if you look in the midrashim, in the rabbinic traditions, it's even more epic than the straight text, because according to Chazal, the sea didn't split once; it split 12 times, once for each tribe.
12 times, or like once, but like in 12 rows?
Yeah. Meaning there were 12 splits. So that means that there's water. That's customers, right? So I don't know what that means. I don't understand what's the need.
Manasseh and Ephraim, and we're
No, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't remember whether it was the Levi gets his own split or whether it's not Levi, but yes, Manasseh and Ephraim, Yosef split in two. Don't know. Interesting question. Anyway, so this is kind of the big special effects thing. So there's a few things I want to point our attention to. Two major things. One is the nature of the splitting of the sea itself, and then the other one I want to talk about. Well, I'll save it because it's a fun topic. But we'll talk about the splitting. The splitting of the sea. So for many years, one of the things that I kept hearing in yeshiva, and I've been teaching, is that there's one time that the Jewish people had prophecy.
Yes, you taught us right after they exited the.
By Mount Sinai.
Yeah, and the second time, but no, you taught us that
Wait, by splitting, and where else?
by splitting and
by Mount Sinai.
Mount Sinai.
Right? Hashem speaks the Ten Commandments, the Jewish people hear it. So what's interesting is that by the splitting, something I only discovered maybe last year or two, maybe I mentioned it last year, is that when it splits the sea, the Jewish people say, "Zek Heli v'anvehu." This is my God. I will honor him. And the rabbis say that the lowest, the language is that the maidservant, which is kind of like rabbinic language for the lowest spiritual person. Right? The maidservant by the sea had a higher level of prophecy than Yechezkel Hanavi, than Ezekiel the prophet. So there's actually two national prophetic experiences. One by the Mount Sinai, by the revelation of the Ten Commandments, and one by the splitting of the sea. So one of the questions, so I've been thinking about it, if you've heard me mention this before, that's good. But I've been thinking about it since the last year. It's like, why does it have to be twice? Why do we need it twice? Because we only really need it. Students have asked, and I asked this to my rabbis, and the students have asked me over the years, like, why doesn't Hashem, every generation or two, maybe every couple of centuries, every once in a while, let's do a refresher. You have professionals, they have, what do you call it? Ongoing education. There's continuing education, like you have to, you're working in science, you're working in research, you're working in medicine.
Math teachers.
Yeah. You should be up to date with the latest research and the new things, right? So, maybe after a couple of 100 years, the Jewish people, we get a little complacent. We don't remember as much. So bring us to another mountain, do another national revelation. Let the Jewish people hear what's going on. Hey, remember? Like we only, so the argument always is, you don't need to have more than one national revelation. Because if you use your seichel, your intellect, then you could see it happened. It's a historical event. So why do you have to have it more than once? Just use your brains. And it's history. Do you need to have more than one, Revolutionary War to know that the Revolutionary War happened? It happened once, and you know it happened because it was an event in history. But then, as I was thinking last, couple of years, and this since the last time we saw this parsha, I was like, but it didn't happen only one time, right? According to Chazal, according to our rabbis, the whole Jewish people had prophecy by the splitting of the sea also. So the argument that you only need it to happen once and then your intellect will be sufficient, then why did it happen twice? So does that mean that once really wasn't enough? So if once wasn't enough, then why is twice enough?
What are they asking? Revelation once is enough, or the national?
National revelation, right? National revelation, you only need it to happen one time. Like again, let's go back to Mount Sinai. Why did we need to have at least one national revelation so that we would trust Moshe's prophecy and the Torah?
Well, that revelation is the point of the closest intimacy between us and HaKodesh Baruch Hu. He is really very vulnerable at this point.
But not by Mount Sinai. How do I know? Because according to the Midrash, they all died. They couldn't handle that intimacy, right? And so they really weren't deserving of that closeness. They really weren't ready for that closeness. Hashem forced them. The language of the Midrash is Hashem picked up the mountain over their head. It's like, accept this Torah or you'll be buried here. Their free will was compromised. It was a type of a forcing. I'm telling you I'm here, even though you're not ready to really feel it. So it wasn't, the revelation of Mount Sinai wasn't for the purpose of developing a relationship with the Jewish people, because they weren't ready for it. Where it's actually going to be connected to what I'm talking about later, but no spoilers. What really happened, good, someone else is coming in, admit. Welcome. So the revelation of the Torah on Mount Sinai was not really for the purpose of developing relationship, because they weren't ready for it. The revelation of the Torah on Mount Sinai was for the purpose of verifying Moshe's bona fides as a prophet. He is the prophet. How do you know? Because you heard me speak to him. And this is what the Rambam says. The Rambam says that Moshe complained to Hashem, don't send me, right, all the way in Parsha Shmos. Why don't send me? Because the Jewish people are not going to believe in me. I think we talked about this a little bit last time. And so, right, so what is Hashem's answer? The miracles of the splitting of the sea, well, we're going to come back to that, right? All the miracles that come up to Mount Sinai are not for the purpose of verifying you, and they're not for the purpose of belief in me or belief in you. There are many reasons for them. To teach the Jewish people lessons about the nature of God, the nature of reality, the nature of providence, to teach the Egyptians, to teach the world, to teach people in history. But the reason you're going to believe in Moshe, and therefore the reason you're going to believe in Torah, and therefore the reason you're going to believe in Judaism, is going to be when I, Hashem, speak to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai. So that's the purpose of the Mount Sinai revelation, to set intellectually, from now and for all of history, we could have an intellectual confidence that Hashem really spoke to the Jewish people. The Torah is really true. Good. So then what's the purpose of the revelation of the prophetic experience by the splitting of the sea?
I actually don't remember that they have a prophetic experience.
That's what the Chazal say, right? It's a Midrash, or it's a Gemara. I forget which. Rashi brings it down, right? That all the Jews at the sea also had prophecy. All the Jews. Even the lowest Jew had a higher level of prophecy than Ezekiel the prophet. So the question I'm asking is, what's the purpose of having the national? If you only need one national revelation by Mount Sinai, then what did you need the splitting of the sea? And if you need the splitting of the sea also, then why is two enough? Maybe you need to have more. Right? It seems to be a little bit of a like, what's the in other words, at the end of the day, what's the point of having prophecy for all the Jews by the splitting of the sea? But they don't need prophecy for that. They just have the miracle of the sea splitting.
Yeah, but what if
and the prophecy happened after the water crashed.
Oh, after?
And then they saw the Egyptians dead.
That's what the prophecy.
And then it said, this is my God, and I will acknowledge him. And that's when the rabbis point out that they had this level of prophecy. And then it had the songs, the song of Moshe and the Jewish people, and then the song of Miriam. These songs were prophetic, right? It says that the song of the sea and also Miriam's song at the sea actually lay out all of Jewish history. If you know how to read properly the coding of the song of the sea, all of Jewish history is hidden in the song of the sea. right? So this is high-level prophecy. It's hidden, it's coded, right? Because we're not allowed to explicitly put out what's going to happen, right? That's why Yaakov, when he wanted to tell his children what's going to be when Mashiach will come, and Hashem took away his prophecy, right? It's a famous story. And then at first he thought maybe my sons are not worthy, and that's when they said, Shema Yisrael, listen, our father Israel, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, we are worthy. And then he went, okay, so it must be that Hashem took away in prophecy because he doesn't want me to tell you the end, not because you're not worthy. So too here, Moshe and the Song of the Sea are telling us all of Jewish history, but it's coded, it's hidden, it's there, but it's hidden. It's not explicitly stated. The language is metaphor and symbolism. If you knew how to properly read the Song at the Sea and decode it, you would know all of Jewish history. You know everything. You know when Mashiach is coming.
But the generation that had the prophecy, they would know.
They didn't know.
Oh, they didn't.
They didn't know.
They had the prophecy
because they were given. The Rambam points out that when prophets have a prophecy, except for Moshe, Moshe is the only one who had pure communication with God. But when prophets had a prophecy, it came in one of three flavors. Either they got the visions without the explanation, or they got the explanation without the vision, or they got both the explanation and the vision. So, for example, the prophecy in Yechezkel, Ezekiel, of the Merkava, of the chariot, with the different angels, with the four wings and the three heads and all the different, so that's a vision but no explanation. Yechezkel wasn't told what these visions mean, but he was told here and write them down. And the Kabbalah spends a lot of Kabbalah is interpreting these visions and explaining what they mean. And sometimes you see prophecy in the Navi, in the prophets, where the prophet is telling the Jewish people something, but he's not telling them the vision he had. He's just telling them what Hashem told to say to them. And sometimes you get both, the vision and the explanation. So the Song of the Sea is like the vision without the explanation, similar to Yechezkel's prophecy. Of course, it's on the prophecy level of Moshe, so it's perfect, but Moshe didn't tell us what it meant. And that's why it's a song. A song is like poetry. It's symbolism. It's not prose. It's not statements of facts. This is what's happening. Why is it like that? I don't know. It's an interesting question, but we have it all in there. So maybe one possible answer is that's exactly why we had the prophecy. Why did we have all Jewish people have prophecy? So the whole Jewish people would sing. It wasn't just Moshe singing, and it wasn't just Miriam singing a prophetic song. All the Jewish people sang the Song at the Sea. And that's why we needed to all be on the level of a Navi, so we could all sing the song. That seems to be the most straightforward explanation of why it's necessary. Of course, that doesn't answer why did we have to have a super prophetic song that happens at that time. I don't know, but that seems to be the most straightforward answer. But I think we can dig a little bit deeper, or maybe deeper is not the right word. Maybe a different approach. Why did we have to have? Essentially, we have two levels of national revelation. We have national revelation as for the intellectual purpose by Mount Sinai. So what's the national revelation by the sea? It seems to me that it's emotional purpose. So you have two different prophecies. Yes, of course, you only need one national revelation of like Mount Sinai for an intellectual reason. So we all now trust the prophecy of Moshe. We now trust the Torah. We now trust Judaism. We don't need that more than once in history. But it's not enough to only have an intellectual understanding of Hashem. You also have to have an experiential and emotional understanding of Hashem. And maybe this is why they died at Mount Sinai. Maybe what they weren't ready for was understanding.
Because here they didn't.
Here they didn't die, right? They didn't die by the splitting of the sea, even though it was a national revelation. They didn't die because the difference is, I think, when you have a young student, or you have nephews and nieces, a little child, you pick them up and you hug them and you love them, they could get that. But if you try to explain to them what it's like to be an aunt or uncle, or it's like to be a parent, or it's like to have an understanding, they can't understand that. They can't understand that. They're not able to. They're not mature enough to get that. So yeah, they can get love. They can get a hug. The sea was a hug from Hashem.
Very nice.
Right? The sea was Hashem saying, Jewish people. And by the way, it's not an accident that what is it that triggered the prophecy? When the Jews saw the Egyptians dead. And it's incredible. What just happened this week? is that the last of our Jews who was captured in Gaza came back. His body. This week's parsha. We see, but I heard somebody sent an article in one of our Rage students article that actually made it into like one of the Jewish newspapers that they shared in the Beach Haven chat, which was, it's not an accident that the parsha where Moshe Rabbeinu takes the bones of Yosef out of Egypt because he promised, we're not leaving you behind, is when the bones of I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but the bones of our captive was brought back after, and he was a hero. He killed a bunch of terrorists. He saved a bunch of Jews. He was a soldier, and he fought, and he died on October 7th. And they kept his body in Gaza for 2 years. And they just finally found his body and brought him back to Israel to be buried. And all these Jewish soldiers who maybe never heard of him before, or never even knew who he was, but with love, they carried his body back into Israel with the Israeli flag. And it's not an accident. That's this week's parsha when the bones of Yosef are coming out also. And I think it's connected to a bigger thing, is that this whole experience, the end of the Exodus, is a giant show of love of Hashem for the Jewish people. He's saying, you see these people who tormented you for 210 years, who enslaved you, who made your life miserable, who threw your boys into the sea, who did all these terrible things. I'm showing you they're gone. They have no more power over you. I'm showing you your salvation. It's not just that you're saved. It's not enough. It reminds me, Pirkei Avos has a whole bunch of really, it's just occurring to me now. I didn't think about this before, but as I'm saying it now, it occurs to me. I think it's an incredible connection. Pirkei Avos says, how great is Hashem's love for us that he gave us free will, right? What's an even greater, well, the language of Pirkei Avos is that we're Nivra B'Tselem, we're created in God's image. So my Rosh Hashiva interpreted that as he created us with free will. But even if you don't interpret it at all, it just says, how great is Hashem's love for us? Nivra B'Tselem, he created us in the image. Ahava Yoser, a greater love. I forget the exact lashon, but it's he told us he made us B'Tselem. Wait a second. So my Rosh Hashiva of Noach Weinberg, which today was his yahrzeit, Rav Noach Zecher Tzadik Levracha, a great Jew, his memory should be a blessing. He said, how is it a greater love to tell us that we're given free will than to actually give us free will?
That's true. It's like if you were looking for brownie points. That's a good question.
Right?
It's like, both of us are married. You wash dishes, but then you go ahead and
you make sure she knows.
That's it.
Hugh Jackman, who of course plays Wolverine, after his first time as Wolverine, his agent said to him, try to do a few different types of movies so you're not typecast. And he did a romantic comedy, which my wife and I actually watched. It's stupid. All romantic comedies are stupid, but it was very cute. He's basically a time traveler from the 1800s, comes forward in time. And he's like a gentleman or an aristocrat. And he's trying to, it's like a fish out of water story. He doesn't know modern world. He doesn't know. So so his buddy tells him, look, this is how you do dishes today. This is a dishwasher. You put the dishes in. He says, but don't turn it on until she walks in and sees you turn it on. Right? Because to do something nice for her is nice, but that she knows you did it, right? So is this what Hashem did? It's nice that I gave you free will, but even better, I told you. So Rav Noach explained, no, there's something much deeper going on. So he gave us an analogy. He said, imagine you see a poor person, like literally on the street pushing a cart with their stuff, and you say, oh, I feel so bad for this person, I'm going to help them. And you take an envelope and you put in $10,000 cash. How much would $10,000 change a person's life who's sitting on the street?
A lot.
It would change their life with them. I don't know how far long, but at least in the short term, they can go to a hotel, they can get a hot bath, they can get a beard trim, a haircut, they can get new clothes. They could at least for a little while, they could have a totally different life. It could incredible. And then you take that envelope and you go and you stick it under their cart between the cans and you don't tell them it's there. So they're pushing a cart with $10,000 cash and they don't know. So the fact that Hashem gave us free will, but if we don't know we have the free will, it's as if we don't have it. Right? And so, yes, it's amazing Hashem gave us free will, but it wasn't enough to just give it to us. He wants to make sure we're aware that we have it so that we could actually access it. Because you could perfectly say, like Hashem says, I gave you the power. If you didn't figure it out, that's your problem. That you had the power, like you had all the tools in front of you. No, Hashem says, but I love you so much. I'm not just going to give it to you and walk away. I'm going to give it to you and I'm going to tell you I gave it to you. Right? So we see that it's not enough that Hashem saved us from the Egyptians. He showed us our salvation. He showed, and it's even more because the Midrash says, what is the Lashon? It says, what did the Egyptians see by this? What did the Jews see? Oh, I'm in the wrong parsha. I'm in Parshas Yisro, right? What do the Jews see? Go ahead. It says Mitzrayim dead, right? But think about the language.
Like it's singular?
It's in the singular. It should have said they saw the Mitzriim dead, but it says they saw Mitzrayim dead. Not only did they didn't see Egyptians, they saw Egypt. What do you mean you saw Egypt? Like the country is upside down and in the water? It doesn't make sense linguistically. So what do Chazal say? What do our sages say? They saw the angel of Egypt dead. The guardian of the angel of Egypt was slaughtered by Hashem. And that's what they saw with their national. So what a salvation. Physically saved. By the way, financially saved. They got all the money from Egypt. And not only did they take out money from Egypt when they left, but it says that when the Egyptians washed up dead on the seashore, there was tons of gold and silver there also, because Pharaoh had to bribe his soldiers because they didn't really want to go. And he's like, I'll give you all this money. And they went and they took with them gold and silver, and they emptied out the treasuries of Egypt. And so not only did they die, they washed up, and all their money washed up too, that they had taken as bribes and mercenaries to kill the Jews. And so the Jews took their money too. And so they were financially saved. They were physically saved. They were emotionally saved. Hashem is letting them know, I love you. And they were spiritually saved. Not only as the Egyptians did, even their spiritual guardian that was helping them to oppress you, that's dead too. Right? It's just one level of Hashem just showing his love for the Jewish people. And so you can call it an emotional prophetic experience. And that, you don't have to be worthy of that. You don't have to, the level of prophecy that we don't talk about this very much. It's something I need to think about even more. I have to dig even deeper. We always talk about how you have to make yourself worthy of prophecy. Like in Mesilas Yesharim, it's a whole book on how to become ready to be a prophet. It could be that that's talking about an intellectual prophecy. And I can bring you sources to talk about this. The Rambam says that Aristotle was worthy of prophecy. What, was Aristotle a tzaddik? Don't think so. He was Greek, so probably not. Right? But his intellectual capacity was so high, the Rambam says he was worthy of prophecy, except Hashem didn't bless him with actual prophetic visions. But he was worthy of it. But how could it be? If the Kabbalah clearly states that you have to have very high level of midos. You have to be an almost perfect person to be worthy of prophecy. Maybe this is a possible answer, that we're talking about intellectual prophecy. To understand Hashem, you need to be worthy of that. But to feel Hashem's love, you don't need to be worthy of that. Is a child worthy of their parents' love? They didn't do anything. They didn't earn anything. Just their existence is enough to be worthy of love. And so students. You have students, Bonim. I have students in the chat, right? Why does a student do something to be worthy? Just the fact that they're students they're already worthy of being loved. The fact that we're his students and we're his children and we're his nation, that's all they need. And so he hugs us, he shows us the salvation, and then we leave Egypt. Finally, with a clear head, that's it. Egyptians are done. We never have to worry about them again. Thank you, Hashem, and I feel so amazingly loved. Okay. So that's something I've been thinking about with the sea. I think it's a pretty cool idea. But then that leads us to a very big question and problem. Because what happens almost immediately after this incredible show of love from Hashem?
Where's the water? Where's
the food? Where's the water? It's so hot. It's so cold. Oh my God, Hashem. What's going on? We complain. What, it's funny because I saw on Rabbi Foreman's website, Aleph Beta, that they put out like, I hate this parsha more, not I hate it, like I hate it, but like I find this parsha the most difficult of all parshas, because after the most unbelievable love that Hashem shows us, and then we start complaining immediately. It makes the Jews look so bad. It's so cringe. Like if you had a person in your life that you showed the most unbelievable, overwhelming love and kindness, and the very next day they were being ungrateful to you, it's astonishing. And what makes it even harder, my wife and I were talking about this, is that the Chazal tell us that this is one of the greatest generations that ever lived. It says Hashem looked from the beginning of Jewish history to the end. This was the only generation that could be worthy of the revelation of the Torah on Mount Sinai. What do you mean? How could this generation that complained and complained and complained, and we're called Yehudim, those who are grateful, we're the grateful people. So how can the grateful people, the generation that's the most worthy of receiving the Torah, was the least grateful generation? I don't get this.
Or so we think, because we can only, I mean, 40 years, like.
So it's a big question. It's a big question. You're already beginning to try to understand and answer, and you're doing the right thing. Like the rabbis are not stupid. The rabbis also read the Torah. The rabbis also saw the Jewish people complaining, right? So how do we understand this? So I saw a new answer I hadn't seen before this week as I was preparing for this parsha, which I want to share with you, which I find very, very interesting. When is the first time the Jewish people complain? Let's actually go there. Let's look. There are 3 times in this parsha, right? Let's look at them, and don't comment yet. Let's just read them and then sit back and see if you notice anything interesting. Okay, so we have the Egyptians are dead. Hashem saves the Jews sing. Okay, and then the women sing, which is its own question. Why do you also need the women singing? It's not enough, because the women sang twice, it seems like, because they sang, everyone sang, and then just the women sang. Why do women have to sing twice? I don't know. I saw some interesting answers. That's not what I'm focusing on today, but maybe next year, right? Okay. And now the women sing. Right after the women sing, the very next, so it's literally the end of us thanking Hashem. Thank you. We're singing. It's so amazing. Not prophecy. It's the song is hidden all the secrets of Jewish history. Chapter 15, verse 22. Moshe caused Israel to journey from the Sea of Reeds, and they went out to the wilderness of Shur. They went for a 3-day period in the wilderness, but they did not find water. They came to Marah, but they could not drink the waters of Marah because they were bitter. That's why it's called Marah, bitter water. Then they named it Marah because it was bitter. The people complained against Moshe, saying, "What shall we drink?" So he cried out to Hashem. He probably means Moshe. And Hashem showed him a tree. He threw in the water became sweet. Okay, so that's the first time they complained. When is the next time they complained? They journeyed from Elim. Now we're in chapter 16. Okay, verse number 2. The entire assembly of the children of Israel complained against Moshe and Aaron in the wilderness. The children of Israel said to them, "If only we had died by the hand of Hashem in the land of Egypt, as we sat by the pot of meat, when we ate bread to satiety. We had enough bread to eat. It was so good in Egypt, right? For you took us out in this wilderness to kill us all by famine. We're all going to starve to death." And then Hashem said to Moshe, "Behold, I shall rain down food from you." So now Hashem says to Moshe, "I'm going to send them the manna, the mon, the miracle food." Okay, when's the next time they complain? Heard the complaints. 1 second. Let's go a little further. And
there's another water. It's page 390.
Yeah, here it is. Chapter 17. They traveled from the wilderness of Sin, according to the word of Hashem. They encamped in Rephidim, and there was no water. Again, second time no water. The people contended with Moshe, and they said, "Give us water, we may drink." And Moshe said to them, "Why are you arguing with me? Why do you test Hashem?" The people thirsted for water. The people complained against Moshe, and it said, "Why did you bring us from Egypt to kill me and my children and all of my livestock with thirst? You're trying to kill us out here?" And Hashem said to Moshe, "Go take your staff, which you hit the water with in Egypt, and you're going to stand by the rock, and you're going to hit the rock, and water is going to come out of it." Remember, later on, he hit the rock when he wasn't supposed to.
I can make an argument like Hashem is not a very good host. You know what I'm saying? You got a bunch of people. You can do so much. You know, they show up there, and you know what I'm saying? It's
like, why not feed them?
Right. Once, yeah.
So I'll give you you're touching on the answer from another angle. You're actually touching on the answer. Check this out. So imagine you're invited into someone's home, right? and the host, the owner of the home, he's in the kitchen, and there's somebody who's like, running the meal, and you come and you see there's no water, right? Who should complaint go to that there's no water?
The host.
It's the host. Who are the Jewish people complaining against?
Host.
No.
No, the Moses.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
Moses
Every single time they complain against Moshe, they complain against Moshe and Aaron, they complain against Moshe. Moshe even says to them, why are you complaining to me? Complain to Hashem. And so we see later, it says Hashem tested them. So
in terms of what?
Who are they gonna go for?
who are they going to go to to fix the problems?
So Moshe wanted them to, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted them to pray instead
Yes.
they attacked Moshe?
Yes.
Is that your?
That is how they failed, because we see this all over the place. It's a Chazal asked the question. It says, how come all of our foremothers were barren? All of them, right? And the answer is because Hashem loves the prayers of the righteous.
Relationship.
He wants the relationship. So Hashem is a host, but his purpose in life is not to make your life easy. His purpose in life is to have a relationship with you.
Correct.
And so he says, when Hashem makes it that it seems unpleasant, the purpose of unpleasantness is so that you should develop a relationship with Hashem. And every time, and it says later, I tested you 10 times and you failed 10 times.
It's like us complaining, oh, Democrats are in power, that's why my life sucks.
Yes, that's such a perfect analogy. That's such a perfect analogy.
I hope
No. Hey, if somebody today says,
whatever it is, whatever.
listen, I was never involved in politics until Obama was president. And then my mom gave me a book by Mark Levin called the Conservative Manifesto. And that's how I got into it. Right. And, but one of the things as a Jew, we always say is, if you're complaining about Biden or about Obama or about whomever you want to, Mamdani, he says, you're actually missing the point. He says, you think they have power? What Chazal say explicitly, Lev HaMelech biyad Hashem. The heart of the king is in the hands of Hashem. He says that you think Trump has free will to run the world? He's too important. Hashem is right. Trump is nothing but Hashem's puppet. But Biden is also nothing but Hashem's puppet. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do your hishtadlut. Of course you should vote. Of course you should research. Of course you should argue. But when you daven to Hashem. You don't daven to Trump. When you complain to Hashem. You don't complain to Biden.
But you don't sit like the news. Oh, I hope like Trump does this or Biden does that. Or
that's missing the point. As a Jew, you direct your when there was no water. What are you going to Moshe for? You think Moshe is going to spit water out of his nose for you?
But it's like when you're in Walmart, you where's the store manager?
Exactly. You asked for the manager. Why didn't they ask for the manager? So it's interesting. Why didn't they? What was the failure they made? How come they kept going to Moshe? So here's one interesting explanation.
For them, he was the store manager.
Kind of. That could be an approach.
You can speak to him like your language.
By the way, and we see this by the golden calf, right? The golden calf was not a replacement for Hashem, it was a replacement for Moshe. We're going to see that later. Spoilers. We're going to see later, right? So it's always, the Jewish people kept making that mistake again and again and again as they kept going to Moshe instead of going to Hashem. The question is, why did they make that mistake? I mean, I'm not judging, I'm saying, but we're trying to understand.
I always want to play the advocate of the Klal Yisrael. They were never taught that. Like, at what point they had a shir, like, okay, guys, next time you're complaining, don't go to Moshe.
Moshe just said.
Moshe just said.
But he just told him. What do you mean? I'll give you right now. In this pasuk, Moshe says, don't complain to me, complain to Hashem. He told them explicitly the answer. They still made the mistake. You have a good point, but the answer's right here. And Moshe was very patient. The first time they complained against him, he just talked to Hashem. He gave them a chance. Second time he complained against them, he just talked to Hashem. Finally, he's like, dude, complain to Hashem. Stop complaining to me. But they didn't. They kept making this mistake again and again, even afterwards.
So as if they're recreating an idol.
But not exactly, but in a way. Because anytime you're searching, you're right, in the sense that the underlying theme of idols is you're going to something other than Hashem for your needs. So you're right. In that way, you're right. But it wasn't really a worship, but it was the same. It was the same psychological problem of idol worship. They were going to something else other than. The question is why? And there are many, many possible answers. I'll give you one or two that I saw that are very interesting, I think. One of them is about misunderstanding the nature of the relationship with Hashem. Because up until now, what did they experience in Egypt? They experienced what I like to call high budget special effects. Splitting of the sea, 10 plagues, it's all big stuff. So it's very easy. By the way, we see this people all the time. I have people till today who come to me and they say they don't even feel comfortable talking to Hashem about small things. Because he's so big, he runs the whole universe. He's going to worry about my little problem. That's the same mistake that they made. One of the possible ways of understanding it is the Jewish people didn't understand that Hashem is not big or small. He's beyond size. The famous, I heard a story once about some yeshiva boys. It was like some modern Orthodox yeshiva. They had like a little league game, boys playing baseball. And their coach, Yamaka, from guy, he says, okay, boys, let's dive into Hashem that we win this game. And one of the boys was bothered by that. And he went to his Rebbe in yeshiva the next day. And he said, Rebbe, I feel uncomfortable. How can we dive into Hashem to win a baseball game? And his Rebbe says to him, why are you uncomfortable? Hashem loves you. Why you could ask Tati for anything. He says, you think Hashem is going to go, that's too small. What do they do with the advertising for big plumbers advertise, no job too big, no job too small, right? Right? Hashem saying, talk to me about everything. Like Rabbi Avigdor Miller, one of the great rabbis of the last generation, rest in peace. Somebody once asked him, how do you walk with Hashem? He says, it's easy. You take him by the arm and you walk. Like you're making it too complicated. Just talk with Hashem all the time about everything. Doesn't matter how big, it doesn't matter how small. Hashem, help me catch the bus. Hashem, help me do this. Hashem, or just talk. Like, Hashem, let me tell you about my issues, my problems. Like, I had a nosebleed yesterday. And it was super annoying. Well, you think Hashem is going, oh, vez mir, I have to hear about this kid's nosebleed? No. He's like, yes, talk to me. Of course, everything. It doesn't matter. To Hashem, there's no such thing as big or small. We're all nothing compared to Hashem. He's infinite. We're finite. It doesn't matter. The whole universe's creation is not bigger or smaller than catching the bus or missing the bus.
In defense of Klal Yisrael, it's effects of Christianity on us, because that's why
before Christianity.
But that's before.
No, but I'm saying that's why they build these big cathedrals so you feel small in there, and so it's like a psychological thing that's passed from generation to generation. So you really feel like, yes, I'm very small. This is like a huge thing over here,
right?
And and in Egypt, that's how they made their gods. Probably they built big
giant statues. Look at the pyramids.
So and you feel small.
Well, the pyramids might have been before Egypt, but that's a whole different story.
Right. So that's the whole point of the Zohar. In a sense, they always want to make you feel small and diminish your.
So very good. You're actually pointing out something else related to Avodah Zarah. The Rambam says in the laws of idol worship in the Mishnah Torah that the way that idol worship happened is that people said, Hashem is so big, we feel reluctant to talk to him about everything. Let's talk to his officers. Let's talk to his, the chamberlain. So they talk to the sun, they talk to the moon, they talk to the river, they talk to the tree. They didn't mean to forget about Hashem, but that's what wound up happening. Because they went to the officers instead of to the boss, they wound up forgetting about the boss entirely. And the Rambam says that was how idol worship even began. So it's the same problem again and again. And by the way, like I get it. Like I understand psychologically. It's like you almost. And by the way, I'm sure you've experienced this a little bit because we're all human beings. Do you ever feel like, how can I ask Hashem for this when I didn't do what he asked me for yesterday? It's like, by the way, you want to ask your wife for a favor, but you didn't do the thing she asked you to do yesterday. And you're like, honey, I feel like you feel guilty. But with Hashem, how could you feel guilty asking Hashem for anything? Because you're making him into something that's finite. He doesn't feel resentment to you. In fact, quite the opposite. If you're somebody, I remember there's a story was told about this. It was I forget his name, a great Sephardi Chacham, a great Sephardi rabbi in the Syrian community here in Brooklyn. That one day he was outside of one of the big Syrian synagogues and is on Shabbat, and he saw a Syrian guy smoking a cigarette. And he came up to him and said, Chacham, great rabbi, great Jew, maybe you forgot at Shabbat. He says, no, I know it's Shabbat. He says, oh, maybe you forgot that smoking is asur on Shabbat. He goes, no, I know it's asur on Shabbat. He says, it's too hard for me. I can't stop smoking. He says, how much do you smoke? He says, I smoke 2 packs a day, 40 cigarettes every day. which I've heard more. I know people back when I was younger that smoked 3 packs a day. So you can ask my mom, she knows people, right? 2 packs a day, which is very heavy. It's a very heavy smoker, 40 cigarettes a day.
2.5 packs, me.
You used to smoke 2.5 packs? My mom
2.5
used to smoke
packs.
2.5 packs, okay? That's 50 cigarettes a day. That means 1 cigarette every half hour, and that's if you don't sleep, which means probably 3 or 4 cigarettes an hour while you're awake, okay? Right? That means almost like you finish one, and I've seen this. Someone was finishing a cigarette, and they lit the next one from the one that was just finishing. And they never had to use a lighter. They just kept lighting the next one from the last one, right? That I've seen. So imagine that with this guy, 40 cigarettes a day, that's incredible habit, terrible habit. And the Chacham said to me, he says, can I ask you a question? Do you think it's possible that this Shabbat, when you can finish Shabbat and there's still 1 cigarette in the pack? You smoke 1 cigarette less than 2 packs, 39 cigarettes. Can you do that, do you think? And the guy said, he says, but Chacham, what's the point? Hashem doesn't want me to smoke this. He says, my friend, Hashem loves you. He says, if you smoke 1 less cigarette because of the honor of Shabbat, the angels in Shamayim will have an orchestra for you. They're going to lay out the red carpet for you. He said, oh, you know what? I could do 1 less cigarette. And guess what happened? After a few months, he totally quit cigarettes on Shabbat. Right? It took a few months. 1 less, 2 less, 1 pack, half a pack. How hard is that? It's incredibly hard. But but step by step. And the reason he was able to do that is because the Chacham explained to him 2 things. 1, that every little step can be important. And number 2, that every little step Hashem loves so much. I remember when I was learning the Rambam in yeshiva with my chavrusas, Scott and Hananel, and we barely knew Hebrew. Like, we were just starting. So I had a Rambam and I had a dictionary. And every 5 words, stop, look at the dictionary. Stop, look at the dictionary.
I didn't like that about they didn't like, back in the day, did you have smartphones? They didn't allow us to use smartphones.
Before smartforms. Before smartphones.
Like, please, because you sit.
Before smartphones. We had, I think we even have one of the old dictionaries here. I forget even the name of it. It's a very, very famous dictionary. And our Ulpan teacher, our Hebrew teacher, came over, Rabbi Gogek. He's amazing. He's such a special teacher. He came up to us and he just watched us for a minute. And then he says, I want you guys to know, every single time you look in that dictionary and you're pushing yourself, he says, the angels in heaven are throwing a party. He says, you know how much Hashem loves you, that you're working, you're breaking your teeth for Hashem? He loves you so much. Every little thing, so small, but it's not small, because to Hashem there's no small. There's only your heart, right? Give Hashem your heart. There's no such thing as small. And so the idea that Hashem, that the Jewish people didn't understand that's a mistake they made, because they thought Hashem is big. They thought miracles, giant things, splitting of the sea, amazing. But for the small things, we go to Moshe or Aaron or the leaders. And Moshe kept trying, and it was so hard. You see how hard it is for them. They failed. They were not able to do this generation. They weren't able to get that. It took until later generations to finally, and even then, it was a very difficult challenge. And that's one answer. I'll give you one more answer, which might be related, might be not related, but it's also a powerful idea. What time do you have?
We have 8:47.
Okay, perfect. So we'll finish up with this second point. Another reason that they went to Moshe instead of Hashem is, this is a different answer. Although it might be related, but I'm going to assume it's not related for now, just so we can focus on it. Another reason is, I heard this from Rav Nassan Weiss at Aish HaTorah, a very powerful idea. He said, the Jewish people felt overwhelmed by Hashem's presence. It was too much. He says, you know, sometimes we see it even in human relationships, that sometimes you feel overwhelmed by a person's presence and you go, I need a little bit of space.
That's totally true. By the way, that's a very good defense of Klaus Schwab, because if we had Trump in the room right now, you and I would not be able to communicate like this. We'd be like,
yeah, you'd be overwhelmed.
Right. Like, what are we
saying? It's too big.
Right.
It's too powerful.
Correct.
Can't have a normal conversation.
Correct.
Right. So the Jewish people felt, sometimes you have it with like, I know people that it worked out perfectly fine later, but like early on in the relationship, they felt, I know a woman in particular, she felt overwhelmed by this man's love and affection, that she felt like, it's too much, I can't handle it. And part of it is they don't feel worthy of the love. They don't feel like they deserve it. They don't feel like, whatever the reasons are, there are probably 1,000,001 possible reasons. But the practical aspect of it is that they pushed back. They said, too much. I can't handle this. I need space. And sort of what Rabbi Weiss says, that's why this happened. The Jewish people could not handle this closeness. Of course, they died by Mount Sinai. This is just a smaller version of that. They couldn't handle this closeness. And so the way that they created psychologically and emotionally distance with Hashem is by going to Moshe instead of to Hashem. They said, yeah, give us a little space. We can't handle this right now. And I agree with you. It's a good defense for them. It's very hard for them. At the end of the day, Hashem gave them many chances to overcome this. They didn't. They failed finally after 10 times. It's like, okay, you guys can't do it. It's going to be your kids who are going to have to do it. So powerful possible reason for this. And it could be related. It could be because they felt overwhelmed. That's why they weren't able to understand. Rabbi Svirsky, he has a wonderful book. He has one of the things. He has a meditation that I remember. I went with him meditation. He says the thing you want to meditate on Hashem is like this. You say, Hashem is right here, right now, and He loves me. You say that like 10 times a day. Just like pause and just really say it out loud and think to yourself, Hashem is right here, Hashem is right now, and He loves me. But you can imagine a person who doesn't feel worthy of that or feels overwhelmed by that, they would have a hard time saying that. They would feel like, I can't, it's too much. Look, it says in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, you should get dressed and undressed under your covers because of, you shouldn't, you're going to go in front of a king and get undressed. Hashem is right there watching you. You're going to get undressed in front of Him. So that's, I don't do that, and I don't teach people to do that. That's a very high level. It's a Hasidic concept, but it's coming from the same lesson, right? You should feel Hashem's presence, but what if you're not ready for it? Or what if you can't handle it? We get it. And so for us now today, we say, intellectually, I understand Hashem is here, He's now, and He loves me. And now we try to make that real to myself in a way that I feel loved and I don't feel overwhelmed. That's a avoda. That's a work. That's a process. Okay, so we covered some ideas about the sea splitting, and we covered some ideas about why did the Jewish people complain. I think you have what to think about for Shabbos. Okay, guys who came for the class on Zoom, an absolute pleasure to see you all.
Shabbat Shalom.
You
Who
too.
showed
Shabbat
up?
Shalom,
Who else showed
Mami.
up?
Shabbat Shalom Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom Eitan.
Shabbat Shalom. David,
Shabbat Shalom.
who else showed up?
Who came? I don't see anyone else who came after the class started.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, my student and friend Eitan came. He was also here last week.
Oh, okay.
He
I
was
remember him. I can't see for some reason. Usually I see other people, but I
Nope.
can't see on my screen.
That's all.
Usually it says participants. I don't know.
Alrighty, I'm gonna end the stream. Thank you all for coming, and Bezrat Hashem, I will see you next week.
Shabbat Shalom.